Mr. Speaker, while the Conservatives continue to focus on me, we're going to stay focused on supporting Canadians.
So we're not anywhere close to a federal election because we all know that NDP leader Jagmeet Singh has sold his soul and given it to the Liberals. I don't know why they don't just take over the NDP, but we know that the NDP continues to prop up the Liberals. But there are a few pretty troubling things on the horizon for Justin Trudeau. One, the recent fall economic statement, not so good. Canada's heading into a recession. Many of us already knew that. And also, there's that other thing going on Parliament Hill, the trial, the hearings, the commission looking into the federal government's use of the Emergencies Act. I'm Adrienne Batra. With me are Jamil Jivani and Brian Lilley. Jamil, bit of a preamble looking at sort of a couple of issues, but all circling around the fact that, you know, these issues spell big trouble for Justin Trudeau.
Yeah, I mean, it's just obvious that he's not learning from his mistakes and that the Liberal Party is continuing to move in the same direction despite the obvious failings. I mean, the Emergencies Act inquiry is proving that they really didn't need to go this far. It's an example of massive government overreach. The evidence is piling up every single day, and yet the Liberal Party wants to stay the course and pretend they have a legitimate case to make about invoking the Emergencies Act in the first place. And then with the fall economic statement, you see a government that continues to want to tax people. They're not backing down on the increases to the carbon tax. They know that that's going to create more inflationary pressures on the economy. And they're introducing more spending as the solution, more money going out the door to different groups that frankly tend to vote Liberal, right? They're talking about students, they're talking about people who they think they can court through their economic policies, despite the fact that this is exactly the tax and spend strategy that led to the inflationary problem we're facing right now in the first place. So it's just bizarre. It's like seeing someone continuing to fall down the stairs, get back up, fall down again, get back up, fall down again. No correction in sight.
It's almost like Joe Biden trying to go up the steps to Air Force One.
Yeah.
We saw that. Brian, speaking of the U.S. president, he recently announced $10,000 in forgiveness for student loans, $20,000 if you got a particular program. Used that under the guise of that with the country's in an emergency. He told us the pandemic was over. But so it's almost like the Canadian government is responding to that in a way. It's an odd response, but nonetheless, on the student loan interest forgiveness that they're doing here in Canada to the tune of, you know, a double-digit $1 billion. I mean, does this play? Does this work? Is it affordable? Inflation is through the roof. Canadians need relief now.
If you want to know what drives Justin Trudeau's policies, look to who his voting coalition is. You remember when he was first elected in 2015, he said, we need to get rid of all these boutique tax credits. There was a boutique tax credit for putting your kids in sports. He wanted to get rid of that, and a boutique tax credit for taking public transit. Oh, we'll get rid of that. But then he brought in, at the same time, a boutique tax credit for teachers who were buying school supplies. Why? Teachers, mostly women, teachers vote Liberal, so we did that. Same here with the student and the interest debt forgiveness. It's all of, you know, his policies are about building voter coalitions. That's what he does with our money. It's not about good governance. And when you know, Jamil mentioned tax and spend, for goodness sakes, between the April budget and the fall economic statement, they increased spending by $20 billion. All of the COVID spending, by the way, is pretty much done now. It's an insignificant amount of spending, what we're doing now when it comes to COVID support measures. And yet I compared the fall economic statement, what we're planning to spend now, to the last pre-pandemic budget. Spending is up 44%. That's not pandemic spending. That's not wage subsidies. That's just over the course of what, 3 years, 4 years, 3 years. Government spending is up 44%. They keep having to find new ways to tax. So they've got the bank tax, the insurance company tax. Now, if you run a public company and you make too much money in their view, and you want to buy back shares, they're going to tax you on that. It's starting to sound like George Harrison's taxman here. 19 for him, 1 for you. That's how it's going to be. That's what they want. They are falling into a stereotype of tax and spend liberals.
I keep bringing up the U.S. example because so much of what happens, Jamil, in the U.S., we ultimately follow here in Canada. Our economies are so closely linked. Voters are about to punish the Democrats in the upcoming midterm elections in just a few days. And I think that Trudeau needs to pay attention to that because Canadians are frustrated. Winter is coming. Costs are through the roof. Every time they fill up their gas tank, they know how much it costs. They're trying to decide what kind of food they can afford. These are realities on the ground, immediate realities. So the Liberals have never missed an opportunity and missed an opportunity. They could have suspended the carbon tax. They could have, at the very least, looked at reducing some of the government spending in order to curb the rates of inflation. We know the Bank of Canada continues to raise interest rates to try to cool things down. I just find it fascinating that no one is really talking about that. I mean, I know the opposition parties are trying, but it's just there seems to be a malaise amongst the Canadian public.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, we're just less than a week away from seeing the results of the Democrats embracing some of these very identical tax and spend policies. The American people are going to send, I think, a very clear message, giving Republicans back both the Congress and the Senate. So should we be having that conversation up here? Absolutely. But as you said, Adrienne, we do have the Conservative Party of Canada and Pierre Poilievre providing a critical voice.
Nice try. Nice try. He's very clever. But here a moment ago, I asked who stayed in the $6,000 a room hotel, $6,000 a night hotel room. And he said that I was focusing on him. Well, I guess that we got our answer then.
But the reality is the other opposition parties, I don't think, are pulling their weight on these issues. You mentioned Jagmeet Singh as an example. I mean, he's supposed to be the voice for the working class, the voice for people who are being hit the hardest by these inflationary policies. And instead, he's the hype man to Justin Trudeau, doing nothing to actually hold him accountable. So that's the problem we have right now is I think there's really only one true opposition party in the country.
Yeah, it's the Conservatives that are the voice of the working person out there now. That's reality. Brian Lilley, last word to you. I want to bring this quickly back to the Emergencies Act because we can't miss it. We are not going to let an opportunity go by without holding Justin Trudeau's feet to the fire and picking on his check your hubris at the door. Critical of Premier Doug Ford for using the notwithstanding clause to deal with the teachers' the CUPE contracts. Yet he, at the same time, implements the Emergencies Act, suspending our civil liberties. And he's critical of Doug Ford.
Yeah.
What the heck?
Look, the Liberals will still tell you that the Emergencies Act did not suspend charter rights. They keep saying that. Their true non-supporters seem to believe it. They should read the actual documents. They should read the orders that went into effect. It very much did so. And that's what the Emergencies Act is looking into. Was it justified? Or the inquiry is looking into. But to stand up and denounce Doug Ford for doing that when you suspended them. But also, I went through Hansard, the official record of parliamentary proceedings, and I just looked over the last couple of years. And has Justin Trudeau raised the issue of the notwithstanding clause being used preemptively ever before this week? And the answer is no. And then he raised it 6 times in 2 days to denounce Doug Ford and ask Pierre Poilievre to denounce Ford with him. And Poilievre wouldn't, of course, but he's never raised it with Bill 96 in Quebec, which strips English language rights. He's never used it against Bill 21. So, as Tristan Hopper pointed out, he's very concerned about trampling of education workers' rights to strike, but not to keep their job if they want to wear a hijab or a Star of David or a cross when they go to work in the school. It's a ludicrous thing, but it shows that with Trudeau, it's all about politics and voter coalitions. He doesn't want to annoy anybody in Quebec, especially not Francois Legault, but he'll definitely beat up on Doug Ford, who needs to realize that Justin Trudeau is not his buddy.
Yeah, well, there's always one set of rules for one province in this country. Log on to Facebook and Twitter. Let us know what you think and go to thetorontosun.com and hit that subscribe button for coverage on stories like this and others for subscriber only content you won't find anywhere else.